So my name's Julia Kelleher. I am the executive director at First Aid Educate. I don't know if you can put a reaction or raise your hand or do something. Let me know if you've heard of First Aid Educate, if you're aware of the organization. To get a sense, yes, okay, no, yes, okay. Hi, Darlene. Um, so First Aid Educate is the only nonprofit in Delaware that's solely dedicated to building the capacity of school boards. And we do that by working with three specific groups of people. One, community members who are served by boards, the school board members themselves, and then anyone who's interested in running for school board. We try to help people understand what the role is and provide supports and training to individuals who are considering running so that they can make an informed choice and hit the ground running once they do, if they were to get elected, or if they decide to run and then get elected. So it's great work. We're building a huge portfolio of trainings. We're always interested in new topics. So if you or someone in your community is interested, please refer them to our website because we do take that input and then we can develop customized content. So today we're here to talk about school boards in general. And I've designed an interactive presentation. So I really hope everyone's ready for this because it's going to be me delivering content, but it's also going to be the audience sharing their perspective on things. I think it can I try to be energetic and entertaining, but I think it can get a little boring if someone's just sort of talking at you for a long period of time. So we have a presentation that's going to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts. And it works that you can speak. You can always interrupt me if you have a thought or a question, but it's designed for introverts and extroverts because if someone doesn't want to speak publicly, that's okay too. All you have to do is enter in on your phone or on your laptop or wherever you're going to do it and vote, right? Or type your word. So no one will know who said what, but it's a great way to see what the room is thinking. All right. Any questions before I get started? Okay. Buckle up. Okay. So can you see let's see. I'm not sure what can you see my screen? Yes, great. Okay. And now I'm going to present. So you should be able to see the whole screen, right? Is the PowerPoint in the whole screen? Perfect. Up at the top, you'll see it says join at menti.com. So on your phone or on your computer, if you could go to menti.com and it'll give you a prompt to enter in a code. And that code will connect you to this presentation. If you have questions, I'll give folks a second, but if you have questions about how that works, let me know.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know I'm driving, so I'm not going to be too interactive. But
Nope, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so if the code didn't work, there's also a QR code if that's easier for you, but I think folks should be there by now, right? I don't know. Yes, great. Okay, great. Perfect. All right, so I told you a little bit about FSE and before we started the presentation, but our mission is to really empower Delawareans to build an excellent school system. What we want to have is high quality public schools in every community so that every child has an opportunity to realize their potential. We believe that's good for humanity, that's good for society, that's good for communities, it's good for the quality of life in Delaware, it's also good for the economic development in the state. Please add the code to the chat. Okay, Tanya, let me go back for you. 36352228. Okay. So our mission is to build to ensure that happens. Then the way that we believe that we can do that is by strengthening school boards. And this whole presentation, hopefully you will leave with a new understanding of why they're so important. So the purpose here is to explain the structure of public education because it's not always clear how federalism works. Talk about the importance of school boards and their roles, and then define the characteristics of an effective school board member, and give you a view as to what the election landscape looks like. So, who's responsible for education in Delaware. This is your first time to vote.
I say everyone.
And I believe it'll let you pick more than one option. If you wanted to vote more than once, you can. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Okay, we got a couple people that didn't vote yet. There you go. Perfect. All right, great. Yeah. So we're clear. We think that, and Donald says legislators. We're clear that there are a lot of people who are involved in this process, right? And they all play different roles. But really, at the end of the day, and that kind of goes back to First Aid Educate's mission, we believe everyone is responsible for this. We believe that Delawareans are going to be the ones who create a world-class public education system. And Delawareans are in each of those categories, right? What's important is that we act together. So, as I mentioned, what we're going to go over today, the public education system, the functions of school boards, the characteristics of school board members, what we think are great qualities. How can you evaluate a candidate, and what the election looks like for 2025. So you may be familiar with this. And so if you are, forgive me, but if you're not, it might be helpful to frame it. We have the federal government, which is the U.S. Department of Education has been in the news. Unclear what the current administration wants to do with that going forward, but that's the federal government. The federal government makes federal laws and it applies to the states, right? They give states money. It's about 10% of Delaware's budget on average for education. Then you have a state education agency, and that state education agency is the recipient in most cases of the money that comes from the feds. The state education agency makes decisions around standards. What do kids need to learn? What kind of test are we going to take? What do our teacher, if you want to get certified as a teacher in Delaware, what does that mean? Then it goes down to the local education agency, and that's where the school board sits. So the state gets the money from the feds, passes the money to, makes those rules around what you got to learn, what the teachers need to, what qualifications teachers need to have, and how we're going to test, among other things. And they push all that money down to the local school boards. And it's there, and that's why we focus on school boards. It's there that very important decision making happens that affects the day-to-day in schools. So a snapshot, and you may have also seen this, if you haven't, this is publicly available information. Delaware has a report card. You can look for any one school district. You can look for different indicators. This is a very, if you Google Delaware report card, you'll be able to get to this site. The enrollment, about 142,000, 142,500 in terms of students. Only 40% of the students on average in grades 3 to 8 can read on grade level. That means 6 out of 10 students cannot. And in math, 7 out of 10 cannot meet the grade level standard. If you look at the attendance down in the bottom, 20% of the kids aren't coming to school. Now, there's a correlation, obviously, because if you're not coming to school, it's going to be very hard for you to meet the standard, right? But this is a snapshot. This information is out there. You can drill down to individual districts. It's important to do that because the average hides what's happening in individual districts. So for example, if you have a city school, right, whether it's in Brandywine, Christina, or Red Clay, you might imagine that the proficiency levels there are lower than the average. So it's very important to see what the state is doing. Then you compare your district to the state average. And you can compare your district to other districts. The decision makers in that school board are responsible, in my opinion, for the outcomes that the schools in their districts are producing. How many districts do we have? There's 16 that are public, 3 that are VOTEC. This is where they are across the state. It breaks out more or less 5, 5, and 5, or 5, 5, and 6, and Milford splits a line. Milford and Woodbridge, you see it right here? Now, can you see my mouse? You see right here, Milford and Woodbridge are across 2 counties. And here are charter schools. So in addition to those 16 plus 3, 19 districts, the regular public and the 3 VOTEC, you've also got charter schools, about 45. They also have their own individual boards. Now, First Aid Educate doesn't work with charter school boards. We focus just on the public school boards, the district boards. Those charter schools are housed inside of districts, but they have a carve out with their own autonomy. Everybody good so far? Okay. So why do school boards matter? This is where you get to type. Why do they matter?
I can't get it. Where is it?
These can just be one word answers. Uh-huh. Oversight, regulation, great. They do have the opportunity to innovate and do experiments, so to speak. They make decisions. Very good.
When
Uh-huh. They affect the future. They can set trends. Very good. Okay, great. Yeah. So good job. Excellent. They do make policies. Yes. Fabulous. Okay. So why school boards matter? They provide leadership in terms of governance, and they evaluate the superintendent. They are responsible for the district leadership, who the superintendent is, and the superintendent's decision making and the goals that the superintendent sets for the district. They're also responsible for student outcomes, which were the results we just looked at when we said 4 out of 10 students can read on grade level and 3 out of 10 on average can do math on grade level. They're responsible for budgetary decisions, which we're going to talk a little bit about in subsequent slides. They do develop policies. You had that up there. Districts can make their own policies. So again, it's that notion that the feds make a federal rule. The state establishes standards and they have certain regulations. And at the local district, they are making policies that determine how districts operate and what happens in those schools. These are very, very important positions. They're supposed to represent the community voice. There should be a way of listening to the constituents that they represent. What are the concerns? What are the issues? What do parents and families want to see? And making sure that everyone has equitable access to a high quality public education. And that may mean sometimes equitable in this sense, which I'm sure you're familiar with the conversation around the funding formula. Equitable means, does the child have enough to be able to succeed? I may need 3 units of something, and my friend may need 2, and my other friend may need 7. But in order for us to all be able to be successful, equity means we get what we need, not equal distribution and equitable distribution. Let me just check the chat one second. Voice for parents. I didn't see the Wilmington charter. Yeah, I took the, I'll look for it, Tayo. Thanks for pointing that out. Address issues and problems. Okay. Okay, so these are some roles and responsibilities of boards. They set the vision and goals for the district. So there should be a strategic planning process, right? Where the district says our goals for the from 2025 to 2028 are that we will see a 10% increase in 3rd grade reading proficiency, that we will have an increase in the graduation rate, that our average SAT score will go up, that we'll have fewer discipline issues in schools, right? They set goals. We'll recruit and retain teachers and we won't have a shortage. They set goals for the system. And then they make policies that should be in line with achieving those goals. So I want to achieve X, and then I make governance recommendations through policy that ensure the district is going to be able, or increase the likelihood that the district's going to be able to meet those goals. They do a human resources function in terms of hiring and evaluating and deciding if the superintendent is meeting their responsibilities. Again, managing the budget, because the budget gets presented to the board and the board makes a decision. It says that we think this is the right way to spend the money. And again, the decisions around how the money is spent should be tied back to the goals that the district is trying to achieve. So if I wanted to have an increase in third grade reading, where should my investment be?
In third grade.
In things that are going to drive changes in third grade reading, right? So what First Aid Educate would like to see are board members that are having that discussion in public, showing where's the line item, what are we making investments in, right? Having the community know, hey, we're really concerned about discipline. Where's the investment in school safety? They're also supposed to advocate for public education, so they receive money from the state. They should be communicating with the state to express their needs. They should engage the community in formal ways, and that's meeting with them, encouraging public comment, and again, ensuring equity. Okay, so which of those responsibilities do you think are most important? If you could come off mute or type in the chat. All of them? I'll put them back up so you can see them, but which of these responsibilities seem to be the most important in your opinion?
And I think advocating for public education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
We have to
I would
pick
agree.
one.
Mm-hmm. Darlene agrees. Engaging the community. James, yep. Tanya, the superintendent, setting the goals. I mean, they're all important, right?
I would say ensure equity.
Ensure equity. Yep. So,
Because that the others above will drive that, right?
mhm.
So if you don't manage the budget correctly to ensure equity, then so I think equity will drive a lot of things in that list above.
That's fabulous. And I appreciate all of your thoughts and your perspectives. I think this is really important. Again, what First Aid Educate is trying to achieve is that the communities across Delaware are having these conversations, that someone's turning to their neighbor and saying, how is our district doing with equity? What kinds of decisions are they making? What kinds of policies are they putting out there? Have you had a chance to talk to the XYZ board member? If everyone in Delaware was engaged in this conversation, I I see an incredible potential for improvement for where we are right now. And right now we're 45th in the nation. And we can do better than having 4 out of 10 students be able to read on grade level and 3 out of 10 be able to do math. Now I will say I don't want my comments to be taken out of context. And I want to clarify, I am not saying school board members are the only people responsible, because you remember we had that first slide of like who's responsible. It had the governor, DOE, legislators, school board members, educators, families, everybody, right? I am focused on what school board members do because that's my lane. This organization is focused on building the capacity, giving them the tools and resources that they need to be able to make educated and excellent decisions, right? And I don't know if you've had a similar experience, but if someone asks me to do something that I haven't done before and doesn't give me any training, it's going to be very hard for me to be able to execute at the way that I would want to. So we are here to support school board members. We are grateful for them. We recognize their commitment and the sacrifice that they make. And we're pointing out that training and resources are readily available. Okay, so question about budgets. And this is another participation one. So how large are the budgets that school districts are approving? This is in millions. We got 3 votes so far, and in the chat, I think Donald wrote the 550. Great. Okay. So thank you. And we're pretty much across the board, right? And it is true that different districts have different size budgets. What do you think drives how large the budget is?
The number of students.
The number of students, right? So here are the numbers. This is a mix of 24 and 25 data. So you have 5 to 7 people who are going to make a decision around the investment of $250 million in Appo. That's a lot of money.
Okay, very clear. Very good.
Any thoughts on, I mean, are these the graph kind of had us everywhere, but are these the numbers you expected to see?
Well, kind of, yes. Mhm.
So do you think that it would warrant some kind of training if you're new to being on a school board? Would it be helpful to have some training on school finance?
Yes.
This is a huge responsibility. Okay, I guess. Great. Okay. All right. So, what are the characteristics of effective school board members?
What are the characteristics?
Mm-hmm. What kind of skills or traits, talents, abilities should they have?
Mm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Energetic and compassion. Oh, kids in the district. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Community involvement. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have to have relationships with the community to be able to get the input.
Mhm.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's also important, management of so I'll read what Donald wrote: management of finance, community outreach and engagement, relationship with the parents. To manage people. Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it, is like a board has to function as a board, which means that each individual comes, but as a collective, they need to work together. And I think that that's an important skill, to build consensus, to listen to others, right? That so that the board can be functional and it can make a decision, because it's not a collection of individuals, it's a board.
Mhm.
Great. So these are some of the things that we look for in candidates and that we help seated school board members emphasize or cultivate their ability to do. So being a continuous learner, right? Signing up and say, I want to learn. So I've only done one budget and I want to learn more about it. Visionary leadership, seeing what's possible. Someone who's able to say, all right, we're 45th. How do we get to 40? How do we get to 35th? How do we get to 25th? How do we get in the top quartile?
Mhm.
Committed to equity, like Mark suggested. Being an informed decision maker, someone who's looking at data, someone who's not just making a decision because intuitively it feels right, but they're grounded. They're grounded in data. They've talked to the community, that they're student centered. And then this idea of being resilient, it's a public role, and there's a lot of scrutiny, and not everyone's going to be happy with every decision. And sometimes board meetings get contentious. So there needs to be kind of an ability to tolerate that and work through it with the community. some skills, and a lot of these were what you mentioned. One thing that didn't come up, I don't think I saw it anyway, was policy development, right? Knowing how to write a policy. That's something. But we also think that a legal background, human resources, some of this technical knowledge that people need, that's also very helpful because of the nature of the decisions that they're going to be making. For example, you recruit, interview, and hire a superintendent. That's a human resources function. You need to evaluate that superintendent. That's a human resources function. So being able to be supported, to have good tools for the evaluation, know how to give constructive feedback. These are things that if you haven't worked in human resources or you don't manage someone, maybe that's not what you've done a lot of. So that kind of skill is very valuable. Mark?
So who looks at it from a overall board perspective? So for example, you could have 6 people that might be really good with financial management, but nobody's good with legal.
Yeah.
And so who oversees and says, oh, we need to piece this together because we're lacking, like when I'm on a Goldie Beacon board and we actually will say, we're missing this. So who's responsible for that?
So I think I'm really glad that you asked that question. I share the importance that you're placing on that, and I'll show you a little later something that we do, but it's not really talked about. And so what we're trying to do as an organization is really connect with other organizations, like the example you just gave. First Aid Educate isn't saying it because we think that we want to tell people what to do. It's what good best practice is, right? You're telling me that's what a board does. So we've created a tool for the upcoming election where we looked at everyone who's seated and we have a scorecard to say which of these things do they have, and we're going to publish them. Hopefully then, when empowered with the information, when you're evaluating a candidate, you'll say, well, we've got all this and we're missing this. Does this person have that? It's a good fit. It's not, but it's a great question. Any other questions on this? Comments? Okay. So anybody know what seats are up for election in your district? That's another thing that we are very focused on doing, is helping people be aware that elections happen in May. It's off cycle, so it doesn't get as much sort of press and attention. For everyone who's here, if you could help me spread the word, that would be great. I'll show you the dates on subsequent slides, but there are about 20, I'm not going to tell you. Is there, maybe we could, I didn't realize I had a participation one for this. Would you mind voting? I saw two heads shake. So I know those 2 answers, but if we could so we could share with each other, do we know if there's a board seat open? Great. 3 said yes. 4 said yes. 5. Okay, perfect. That's pretty good. Not sure? Okay, good. I'm gonna share with you. And this is from the election. This is from the Board of Elections. And to me, I don't know how this looks to you, but it looks a little confusing. Like I'm not really sure what they're trying to tell me here. And a lot of this information is kind of like hidden in plain sight. This is telling you what years, what seats are coming up. So in 25, you can see these seats will be up. In 26, the next set of seats will be up. It's a 4-year term, and usually people complete their 4-year term. There are instances where someone resigns. Unfortunately, there was a case, a board member passed away. So it's not always one every 4 years, but generally speaking, that's supposed to be the pattern. And here you have the count for each county for a total of 27. There's 10 in Newcastle, 6 in Kent, and 11 in Sussex. So again, what our organization is trying to do is raise awareness around this, to make sure people know, that to make it easier for you. You don't have to go to the website. You don't have to figure out. We want to be able to share information about what seats are up and what choices the citizens need to be able to make. Here's a breakdown. So the way that it works is some are at large, which means if you live anywhere in the district, and others are, you have to live in a nominating district. You have to be in a certain section of that school district. The number on the right in this column is telling you how many people have filed. So you can see that, and they have until March 7th to file. but you can see that not everyone there's not a taker right now for every one of those seats. What we would like to see is that there are multiple candidates. Mark, to go back to your point about what are you looking for on the board, we need many people running so that we can make sure that we've got the right collection of skills, characteristics, traits, dispositions on the board. When there's only one person running, it's really not a choice. The other thing that happens is if a board member seat is up, they say they want to run again, no one else files, there's no election, that person just remains in that seat. Frederica, I'm so sorry. I have to say something. I was so happy to see your name, and I see your ceiling right now, but I'm going to be thrilled to see your face.
When did you say that filing deadline filing was?
March 7th. Okay.
Is that for all of those seats? For all of
Correct.
those?
It's statewide.
Oh.
And then the election is the second week in May. Okay. All right. So what's the timeline? This is what we were getting at. And on this website, it's if you Google school board elections Delaware, you can get to this elections page, and it'll show you the information I just showed you on the previous slides. I got this chart from that website, and I made this information. I made this table from the information, and I can show you what it looks like. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you go to school board elections, you go right here, and you go who filed up here, top right.
Mhm.
And you can see who filed in each county, right? So what I was showing you is that in Newcastle, there's a seat, but nobody filed for Apo. So back here, right? You can see on this table, there's one seat and no candidate, that top row. So I just sort of condensed the information for you, but it's all available here. And then they tell you who's filed. So great idea would reach out to that person. How do we get to know that person? Is that person going to do a public forum? What kind of, who are we considering allowing to sit in that seat? Okay. Okay, yeah. So what percent of Delawareans voted in the last school board elections? And I changed that to 100, but I don't know why it didn't save. Oh, Federica, if you want to participate, let me get the thing from the.
I don't have that screen on my phone.
You don't see that? Let me put
Not
if you
on
go
my-
to menti.com, I'll put it back here.
I have it. I have it on there, but it has the previous slide you had.
What are other folks seeing? Are you seeing this sliding bar?
I'm seeing it because they
Yes, I
voted.
see that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I pushed the button. I don't see it.
Yeah, so we had 6% of people vote. I'm sorry, 4%, 1% of people vote, and it was about 6,000 people.
Mhm.
In the previous year, we had 25,000 people vote. But there are 1 million people that live in Delaware. And anybody remember the number of public school students? 142.5. We've got 6,000 people actively participating in this decision making over, we saw the budgets, right? Average size, just to say, $250 million. So I think if we change that, there's potential to have a positive impact on the decisions that are made at the local school board level. So, should you run for school board in 2025? And we're really encouraging, our goal is to get a lot of great candidates to run, to support them, to give them knowledge, information, help them navigate the landscape. We want to help the board members that are there as well. We're trying to build capacity because this is a collective problem. Everyone is responsible for doing something to make sure that our public schools become excellent. So, should you run? These are some questions that you could ask yourself. Are you passionate about it? Do you really care? Because it's a huge sacrifice. It's a huge time commitment. Are you willing to listen to diverse perspectives? Are you coming in already saying, I know this is how it's got to be? How are you going to be as a board member if you're just so focused and I'm only going to advance these priorities and not able to process diverse perspectives? Can I commit the time? Do I have the ability to work collaboratively with other people? Do I want to communicate? Do I want to communicate with my board members, and do I want to communicate with the public? Am I prepared to make a decision on $250 million? And it doesn't mean you have to know the right answers. It just means that you need to put the supports around you or raise your hand or we can all do this together. But that's important. Do I want to make policies? Do I want to look at achievement data? Is this how I want to spend my time? Because I'm passionate and I care and I know I'm going to bring my best self. And when you do that, it's going to bring positive results for the students in those schools. And can you lead with integrity and be accountable for the decisions that you make?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the average amount of time, let's say, that you put in like for a month or for
Board member, it probably varies, but you have board meetings, just to walk through the scenario, right? They're once a month and they start at 7. They have to do executive session before that. Sometimes they finish at 10 at night, but that's just the meeting, right? They
right.
had to get a packet beforehand. So if it was the budget, they got the budget beforehand. They had to review the materials. They had to meet with, the district. There's a lot of work. Then the board should meet and talk amongst itself, right? If there's a special event that they need to, they're doing a strategic plan. That's a whole nother set of meetings that they have to do, right? If there's an issue, if there's a referendum, that's another. Constituents call you, so the hours can add up quite quickly, but it probably really depends on the district, the issues, where they are, how we're operate, you know what I mean? It probably depends on a lot of things.
Mm. So people work like 40 hours a week.
And then on top of that, right.
Right. Well, I don't work, but I was just trying to like relate it to about how many hours like a week that you would put in. So it would, gosh, it would be somewhere up to like what, 30 hours a week or something.
I mean, it's not
It
insignificant.
may vary week by week, but yeah.
I have a question.
Yep, sure.
So in light of some of the news that came out of Christina, the board members, what's their financial liability? Like, how are they protected or not protected from, lawsuits? How does that work?
I don't have the legal background to be able to speak to that. My life experience tells me that there should be a general counsel, like the board should have a general counsel. They should have a lawyer. Some districts actually have a lawyer too. So someone should be giving advice on the front end, right? And then how the decision is made. I think the liability comes in if a decision is made improperly. So there are parliamentarian rules that are supposed to dictate how the board meetings run. And there's procedures so I would imagine, you have an issue, you consult the lawyer, you run it according to what best practices and the procedural, and so then the liability would be limited around that. But I really don't know, and it probably depends on the matter itself. Okay. All right, so this is, Mark, what I was explaining. We made these blueprints so that you can evaluate on any given board what is the skill set that's there, and what does the board currently have, so that you know what you're looking for in a candidate. And we've done them for most of the districts. This is for Appoquinimink, but they're all available on our website.
Do boards have the ability to, do they have a budget themselves? So if they say, hey, we don't have anybody in finance, can we hire a firm or a consultant? Do they have that ability?
I think that the totality of the district budget could include board capacity, something or other. Some districts pay some organizations like membership fees of $15,000. So as part of that, you could say inside of that, I need to make sure I purchase the things, the expertise that I don't have. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more, we'd encourage you to visit our website. There's a lot of webinars there. We're launching maybe in about 2 months, so like the late spring or early spring, we're going to launch a knowledge hub where individuals can sign up and you can go in and peruse a variety of different resources on different topics, policy making, budget, student discipline, school climate, all of that. So we're looking to promote that and really create a virtual hub where all Delawareans can come to access this information. We record our webinars, which we do multiple. I'm doing one next on Thursday, the 30th, on school finance, on budget, on what's the revenues that come in, what are the sources of revenues, are they restricted or discretionary, and how are things spent? Because I think it's not common knowledge. I think it's kind of just sort of only certain people know, and we really want to promote this understanding. And it's especially important now, right? Because the budget cycle starts in March, and we're going to get a budget from Delaware and from the legislature. And they're also considering changing the student funding formula. And if they were to change that, the estimate of what will be needed to create equity was about $500 million. So that's a lot of money to come in, and making sure that people have the framework to understand how it's being spent now and what that might look like if the funding formula were to change, we think is very important.
So will we have the opportunity, could we sign up for those additional webinars with you, like today?
Yeah, if you go to our website, you'll see, if you go to school board or community, and then it'll take you to a link to sign up. At the top of I'll show you. I'll show you when I finish, when I close this and I take it off.
All right. Okay.
I have a question. This training today, would this be available on the website or be available again to redo?
Yeah, so this is, I'm recording it, so it will be available. We're doing this in partnership with the chamber. Our goal is to increase the number of people who experience this. So we can certainly share it, but I'd be more than happy if you got a group of people together in a certain sector. We can redo this presentation for them, or we can do a presentation on a topic that is of importance to the people who are in your community and your peers and colleagues.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I appreciate you asking too, because what our sole goal is to get everyone in Delaware informed and talking about school boards. So anything you can do to help spread the word, you feel free to put people in contact with me. My email is on the last slide. I mean, we are more than happy to do anything that's needed to build this bigger base of everyone having the knowledge that they need. So if there's continued interest based on this one, the chamber was offering, we could do 2 more. One, the fundamentals of governance. What does school board governance mean? And then the third one in the series would be, what is board accountability? So it really just depends on how many people follow up, express interest. Ideally we could have 50 people in this room or 100 people in this room, and every one tells one, right? And then we'll be able to make some headway. Do these topics seem interesting to you, the ones that I'm proposing going forward? If there's others, feel free to suggest.
Yes, someone called me and now I'm not on it anymore.
We don't have any more interaction ones. We're almost done.
Thank
so it's
you.
okay.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay, so that's it.